Very grateful, first of all, to the Ibrahim Foundation for making this fellowship possible and for the opportunity that it has offered to young people like myself. And I'm also very grateful to the ECA for having me and for giving me all the exposure and the opportunities in this past 1 year, especially to the Executive Secretary, Dr. Valeria. It has been a rich experience. I came here as a mid-career professional, and the purpose of this fellowship really is to expose young Africans to leadership in practice. And the things that I have learned working directly with Dr. Songwe, I have learned much more than anything I would have learned in any business school or in any classroom. This is leadership in action. You're watching how an executive secretary, first of all, runs an institution like the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, which is a big one at that. How, at the same time, she's trying to channel a vision and rally people behind that vision, the vision for Africa. And so it's not just a technical experience in terms of learning, but you're also seeing how she's imparting knowledge, but also shaping ideas and shaping the way people look at Africa. I have learned very much from that perspective. I have also deepened my knowledge about Africa and economic issues. I came with some good knowledge already, especially from West Africa, but I really wanted to learn more about the CFTA. My background is fiscal. I wanted to learn more about revenue mobilization in other parts of Africa that I was not very familiar with. And the work of ECE, as you know, cuts across the entire continent. And so I was able to do that. I was very glad to participate as a contributor in the flagship economic report for Africa for the ECA that helped me to share what I knew, but also learn in the process. And in addition, I have increased my knowledge on a whole range of subjects, including blue economy, climate change, migration, and because when you're working with the executive secretary, she deals with all the issues. And today you have to prepare a brief on one topic, and the next day it's a totally different topic. Or you cover 6 different topics all in one day. And through that, you learn, you read, you engage with people who know, you sit in meetings with experts. And so there's no doubt that I have had a very fulfilling year here. It did not come easy. It was a lot of hard work, long hours, weekend of work. But if you have 1 year to learn in an environment like this, you go for it. And I think I did exactly just that.
I was just about to ask you that with all that you've been telling us, how did you cope with the pressure?
It's, and I think this is probably part of leadership. I think I had to learn that really early. First of all, I had to watch the person who I'm being mentored by. And that was the first thing that dawned on me, that you watch people from afar, you don't quite realize the amount of pressure they have to deal with on a daily basis. And so when I'm sitting in the same office with her, or we're working in the same space, and I'm exposed to how much work she has to deal with and the breadth of issues she has to cover in one day, not to talk of 1 week or 1 month. But yet she still keeps going, she keeps doing it. Then you see that it's about having composure, it's about having tenacity, it's about having a commitment to get the work done. And this I think these 3 things complement whatever intellect you already have, whatever courage you already have. And I learned that very quickly, at least from the executive secretary. And very soon I just watch how she does it, and it came along. And I think that those are skills that I have developed. I mean, there were things that I could not think that I would be able to do. The amount of work that I could do in one day. You have a full day that goes up to 10, and you think that, you know, in another life you've had enough, but just at 10 o'clock something else comes up that requires your full attention, but it has to be done, so you keep going. And so I think it's a skill. It's not for every day, but it just tells me that when I'm exposed to certain situations that require pressure, I will be able to deliver and respond.
As you said before, the fellowship targets young, upcoming African leaders.
Yeah.
Do you think after 1 year, the ECA, you are ready to go to the next level in terms of leadership?
I think, you can never learn leadership, in 1 year, or you probably cannot even learn leadership in a lifetime. But I think what helps is that when you get exposed to leadership the way you have been exposed to in this fellowship, like I have been, it's different. And I don't think many people have this opportunity. This is why I'm very grateful for the Ibrahim Foundation, because when I look at myself now, and I think that there are so many other people who have had this kind of exposure I've had, courtesy the Ibrahim Foundation, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it's not necessarily breeding new leaders, but it's just, people might become what they want to be. It's not necessarily to say they will go on to become presidents or ministers. But whatever it is that you learn here, it's enough to prepare you for anything else that you want to do, because this is leadership at a very high level. And in the case of ECA, you are directly being mentored by an Undersecretary General. It can only go 2 steps higher than that. And the amount of work is involved, and you are not sidelined. You're drawn into the work, and so you become part of the whole routine around that experience. And there's no way you can walk out being the same person, even if it's for 1 year.
And then when we look in terms of Addis itself, what did it do to you as a person coming from Ghana? What are you taking away with? What are you living in Addis?
I think I came to Addis at a very exciting time. New leadership, there was a breath of fresh air. And so another part of the experience for me has been just watching Dr. Abiu, come into power. I came just about a month or 2 after he had been elected. And so just watching him do what he's doing with Ethiopia, there's a lot of optimism. No doubt Ethiopia has a lot of challenges, but in a sense, I'm also taking a few notes from how he's trying to build Ethiopia again and put the economy on track and address all the different challenges that the country is facing. So yes, from that perspective. But on a more personal, level, I didn't come with my family, so that was challenging by itself. I have 2 young kids and a husband, and so I miss home, no doubt. It was hard, but I knew that it was going to be a short stay, so I gave it my all. I did not discover the city as much or the country as much as I would have liked. But this is a start. I know I'll come back at some point and visit. At least my family did visit the country. And I have made very good friends here that will be easy to come back and visit.
An ultimate question. The work that you've been doing with the Executive Secretary and the ECA in itself, the experts and all, in terms of the continent, where do you see the continent of Africa in the next decade?
I think that there is a new wind blowing in Africa. And we've probably said this many times before, but I'm an African and I can only be optimistic. But there's a new wind blowing, and I say that because particularly of the CFTA, but also because of some of the challenges that we find the continent being confronted with now. And I look at it from the context of debt, how for some countries debt is rising. You have about 13 countries in Africa now that have debt to GDP ratios beyond 70%. At the same time, concessional lending and grants and aid, if you call it so, it's heavily declining. And so the context is a bit more difficult, but there are opportunities. And so if I say that there's a new wind blowing, my basis for optimism is that there has never been a time where it was so obvious that the continent has to rise and decide to determine its own fate. And we see an opportunity in the CFTA. Yes, it's a trade agreement, but if we do it the way it is intended to be, it could open so many windows of opportunities for job creation, for inclusion, infrastructure development, investments. That opportunity is there, but we still need to get some basics right. And so I think that African leaders and governments, and especially young people, have to be conscious of the opportunities we have now and the context that the continent finds itself in. And we should start asking our leaders the right questions. We should start pushing our leaders to do the right things, because if we don't do the right investments now, if we don't implement the right policies now to respond to the growing debt, to the sluggish growth, to respond to the opportunities we have in the CFTA, then it means that 10 years from now, we will be worse off than where we were before.
And just looking at the work that you did at the ECA with not only with the ES and all the other experts, when you look yourself at the end of the day at what you have done, what you have achieved, what one thing would you look at the ECA and say, let's say 5 years from now when you see it has come to fruition, you'll be like, you know what, I contributed to this. What is your major takeaway from all the programs or all the projects that you were involved in at the ECA?
So I did many things, but one thing for sure that I will definitely, I will remember myself, and I know people in the ECA will remember me for is the work we did to establish the Center of Excellence for Digital ID, Digital Trade, and Digital Economy. This just came off as an idea of the Executive Secretary, as we have over 500 million people in Africa that do not have legal ID. There's a wave of digitalization blowing. How do we move the conversation? How do we ensure that we can, one, leverage the digital boom to provide identity for people, legal ID for people, because this in turn opens lots of opportunities. And that's on one side. And then on the other side, there are a lot of opportunities that the whole digital space presents also. And so how do we ensure that we make people productive participants of the economy? And it started off as an idea a couple of months ago, and within a very short time, and I'm very glad that I had to put in a lot of hours into it and work, and kind care to the Executive Secretary. We were exposed to many people from all over the world who we exchanged, brainstormed with on what ECA could do, and we have started some work. It's looking very promising. The Center of Excellence has been established. We have set up a high-level advisory board that I worked a lot to see that come to being. We got a mandate from the African Union Executive Council to work with the African Union Commission to develop a comprehensive digital strategy for Africa, which would be adopted by the heads of states at the summit in 2020. And that work we have started. It's a shame that I'm leaving, but I feel proud already that in a very short time we were able to put some key foundations in place for the institution to continue and come already in 2020. I know it's just a strategy, but it's a stepping stone. It's an opportunity to elevate issues at a very high level, the level of heads of states, to get a buy-in. And then once that consciousness, that sensitization has been done, the next step, of course, will be to ensure that countries are able to adapt and making the right investment, and they'll be able to make informed decisions about setting standards around the whole digital economy, what opportunities are there, because the work that will have been done this year will have provided a lot of exposure. And so this is an initiative I'm very excited about. I will keep following it even if I'm not in the ECA, and I think that it holds a lot of promise, again in the context of the AFCFTA and all the different things that we're trying to achieve on the continent: growth, inequality, and all of that.
Lastly, we can say you came, you saw, you conquered, or you learned. So where do we go from here?
This is a question that I have asked myself many times. Before I came, I have been studying alongside work, and that has been quite challenging. And so this is my 10th year in professional international, development. And I felt it's a good time to take a break and also reflect on everything that I've learned. This is the third multilateral institution I've worked for, the European Union, the IMF, and the UN. And so I'm not in a rush to go back to work. I'm going to take some time off and try to be a student. I'm going to write a lot, and at the same time hope that I can complete a PhD in the shortest possible time. So this